Thank you very much. Nice to have everybody back three-dimensionally.
Yeah.
Thanks to Ms. Nancy Ulrichs for reception, and Max Harper from Butler is going to come and lead us in our pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Mary Marsh for our invocation.
Don't worry, this isn't my permanent job. Dear Lord, on this beautiful day of June, let us renew our pledge of service to our community through the many projects we Kiwanis support. May each of us determine that we will be good stewards of the gift of life that we enjoy by giving more of our time, our talents, and our treasures. May our hearts remind us that the joy of life is in making offerings to others, and guide us to seize every opportunity to share the blessings of our gifts, whatever they might be, to bring hope and comfort to those less fortunate. Remember how many times you have reminded your children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews to share with others and look for the many ways that you can do the same. Bless this food to our use and us to your service. Amen.
And you be seated. I am so proud to announce that Tuesday's golf outing raised $11,796.70. So the big takeaway was to separate it a little bit more from the Salvation Army outing. We reached out to about 30% of the members who normally give, and we already gave the Salvation Army. It was a pretty quick rebuttal. So we'll go back to a September outing for next year. And thanks again for everybody who came out. Gelser Investments was our title sponsor, $5,000. Thanks to Dad at Plain Investment for $2,500. We had a list of whole sponsors. Thanks to Mary March, Trent Hell, On Target, CPA. Thanks to Miss Nancy Ulrichs, who had a spur of the moment $1,000 donation towards county yesterday. We also appreciate the gifts from IOZOs, courtesy of Roger Cummings, $200 gift certificates for lunch. Thanks to Mr. Roger. I think Mary March was one of those recipients. So Mary, if you need a second. Thanks to Graham with Butler, and thanks to Judy and Kirby with Indiana Members Credit Union for their gift donations. We appreciate the tenure of so many of our members. Chick Bourne is celebrating 32 years with the club. Tom Crandall, 31 years. Scott Harkness, 20 years. Kim Fogg, I cannot believe that, 17 years. John Griffin, 15 years. Kathy Lee, 14, and Miss Laura Holloway, 1 year. Thank you, Laura. And let's all sing an early happy birthday to Mr. Jeff Otis, the Chief Officer. Okay, we won't, Jeff. I'll see you in Salt Lake City next week, Jeff. Thanks for helping there. Mr. Roger Cummings has an announcement about our next lunch bunch at IOZO's. Roger, if you could stand.
Monday, June 21st, we're having lunch at IOZO's, 11:30. Everybody's welcome. Please join us. I'd like to know if you're coming, so we get that seat available. We're going to try to do this. It seems like the third Monday of each month seems to be a good day. So tentatively put those on your calendar. Come out, see us when you can. If you want notices when these are, send me your email.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
Miss Nancy Ulrich to present the bylaws revision book. Bart, we always say the most exciting material.
Oh, but you have no idea how I have looked forward to this. All of the members have received a copy of the updated bylaws, and I know that in the last year you approved them. But when I sent them into Kiwanis International, they said, "Oh, Nancy, we haven't used this format since 2014." And indeed, ours had not been approved since 2013. So the content reads slightly differently, but there really were only two differences. Kiwanis International requires that all club boards adopt an annual budget by the 15th of October. We previously had the 30th. I think we can accommodate that. And we need to give 30 days notice for our annual meeting to elect new officers. So, are there any questions about the bylaws? Seeing none, I move that the bylaws be accepted as revised. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Bylaws are passed.
So thanks again, Nancy. That's about 100 hours of volunteering so far since I took over, between helping onboard Kelly, work with tailors, severance, other hurdles along the way. So just a little quick round of applause for Nancy. Thank you so much. So next Thursday, we are here again for only our fourth time in 15 months. So if you are able to join us for Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb, please do. Former President Don Steele will interview Governor. Roger, Lamita, and myself will be in Salt Lake City. I think I'm preemptively sweating. Roger told me it's 114 degrees in Utah, so we'll be enjoying the air conditioning inside. I'm going to call up Claire Brosman for an update from our grant recipient, School on Wheels.
Hi, thank you. Hi. Thank you all so much for this opportunity and the impact that you helped us have this year. I'm Claire Brosman, School on Wheels. I do grants and communications, and School on Wheels is a nonprofit that provides tutoring and academic support to children and their families who are impacted by homelessness. And in any year, that is critical, but this past year was even more so. With the pandemic, students lost the connections that they typically have to their schools and their teachers and those resources in the community that are so valuable. And so we operate typically in a given year with 400 volunteers. That wasn't possible this year because of safety restrictions, and so our staff had to jump in and provide those services, which we of course we're happy to do, but it just made us shift our programs and work extra hard. So that involved, we have these challenges that we were overcoming, but I'm so happy that because of support from Kiwanis and other individuals and organizations throughout the community, we kept our programs going, we kept community actions happening, and we're able to provide basic needs that involved our school staff going around to, the community, delivering meals and providing technology so that students could remain connected. And they developed learning pods to keep students connected because their parents didn't have the same flexibility that many of us had to work from home and help them with their schoolwork during the day. So we created all of these new programs, and we were able to adapt to the changing needs because of funding support. So thank you, truly. This is just a few of the ways our programming changed. We were outside, we were meeting on front porches, we were Zoom, and we were in classrooms. And the little picture is one of our students who said she just missed the connection because there were so many aspects that took kids and families away from community. And so not only were we there for education, but we were there for the social emotional needs too. And she said, Miss Jen, if I meet my goals, will you help me learn how to make pasta for my family? And so Miss Jen was excited to do that, and they dropped off the pasta materials and learned how to make pasta over Zoom. So despite the challenges, connections that were critical remained, and you helped that make that possible. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And Mr. Don Knievel will introduce our speaker, Bart Peterson.
Thanks, Eric. Well, you know, if this speaker needs an introduction, then you've either been out of town for your entire life or been out of wow. Bart was, as you all know, a very successful two-term mayor of Indianapolis from 2000 to 2007. So I'm going to take just a little bit of perhaps the things you didn't know. Bart went to Purdue, where I went, got a master's degree, then he went to the Michigan Law School, got a PhD, which is a really pretty good law school, despite the fact that it was hard. So he then went from mayors to Lilly, where he's senior vice president of corporate affairs and communications, and then retired in 2017. But it's the education part of what he's done that you perhaps don't know about. Bart was the only mayor in the country that had the authority to authorize charter schools and authorized, I think, Bart 16 of those schools while he was mayor, which is a huge accomplishment. Charter schools makes such a difference. He was a 12-year founding board chair of the Mind Trust, which is done for those who don't know extraordinary work in schools around the country. So when Christel decided that she needed a successor, I think there was no better person in the country to take that job than Bart Peterson. And I have first knowledge of that because I was on the board and decided that he was qualified for this office. And we did not make a mistake. So I'd like to introduce with great pride and enthusiasm Bart Peterson, who is the president and CEO of the Christel International.
Don, thank you so much. Pardon me. Thank you so much for your kind introduction, and thank you for your vote back there on the presidential decision. I am really thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be here for a whole host of reasons. I feel like the Kiwanis Club of Indianapolis is a bit of a second home, although I have been gone for a long time. But I have spoken to you on more than one occasion in the past, and I'm just very, very happy to be back. And very happy to be here in person, as you all are. It's just, it just buoys your spirits, doesn't it, to be with other people and have somebody throw their hand out there. I heard people say somewhere the other day that they thought handshakes would be gone forever. I said, no way. And nobody I know is good on handshakes. It's good to shake your hands and good to be with you. And Don, in addition to thanking you for your kind introduction, I want to say thank you for your service on the Christel House International Board. Don is just a great, committed board member. That will not come as a surprise to anybody here. I'm sure he is. His activeness with Kiwanis is well known to all of you, and I can tell you that he is a terrific board member. Eric, very nice to meet you, and congratulations on being a president. I know the stock you come from. Don was telling the other Don Knievel that we've been friends for 20 years or so, and I reminded him it was actually about 30 because we had a mutual friend who worked for Don. That was our next door neighbor back in the mid-80s. So we've been friends forever. Mike, it's great to see you again, and many of you who I've known over the years. So thank you for welcoming me here today. And it's great to have the Christel House International staff folks who are here with us today as well. I want to start by, this probably works intuitively, which means I won't be able to figure it out. There we go. So you all have been generous to Christel House International. I just want to start off by saying thank you for that. Two major programs you can see listed there that you have supported in recent years, and we're very, very grateful for the support of the foundation for the work that we do at Christel House, which is what I'm going to describe here today. So first of all, how we started. Now, Christel DeHaan is a household name in Indianapolis and central Indiana. You all know her. Most of you know that she passed away untimely death almost exactly a year ago due to an illness that had been with her for a while, but still was a surprise and kind of remains a little bit of a shock for all because she was our inspiration. And the architect of something that I think is extraordinary, which is the Crystal House model, which I'm going to describe to you here today. So the story of Christel herself is that she was an immigrant from post-war Germany. She was born during World War II. Her father was a soldier killed in the war. She grew up very poor, of course, everybody was in post-war Germany. She came to the United States, I think in her late teens or maybe about the age of 20. And Christel and her husband, John DeHaan, started a company called RCI, or Resort Condominiums International, part of the timeshare industry. And many people in this room remember RCI pretty well. It was a huge employer based here. Actually still employs over 1,000 people in the greater Indianapolis area. You don't hear much about it because has not been headquartered here since Christel sold the company in 1996. There's still a lot of RCI employees that live and work here in Indianapolis. But when Christel sold the business for a lot of money in 1996, she retired and knew that she was going to devote the rest of her life to philanthropy. She just didn't know exactly which way she was going to go. So she was on the lookout. She had her eyes open. And at one point, I think it was about a year and a half after she had sold RCI, she got a call from an old colleague, the guy who ran the Latin American business for RCI, Gabriel Oropeza. And Gabriel had been working with an orphanage in Mexico City and with a nun who ran the orphanage named Mother Inez. And Gabriel asked if Christel would donate the money to buy a bus for the orphanage. And Christel, being Christel, said, well, Gabrielle, if you believe in this organization, I will certainly do that, but I need to see it first. So she got in an airplane and flew to Mexico City, met with Mother Inez. It turns out there were 2 orphanages, one for boys, one for girls. She visited both of them, and when she was visiting the second one, the one for boys, she was looking at, tells the story of sitting on a hilltop, looking down onto the kids playing in the school, or playing in the yard of the orphanage. And it came to her that she could buy this school bus, she could buy them a nice building, she could buy them just about anything, but it wasn't going to make any difference in the long run. They would have a better place to grow up poor in, and they would finish their time there as 18-year-olds or 16-year-olds and be poor, impoverished adults in Mexico City. Their lives would not have changed if there wasn't some catalyst to change their lives. And that's when the idea of Crystal House came to her, that a first-class education for these kids would be the chance that they could have to break out of poverty. And so she talks about, always talks about the term, the phrase, breaking the cycle of poverty, recognizing that poverty is a very, very hard thing to break from. You can't just give somebody money. You can't just give them a place to live. You can't just give them something and expect them to break out of poverty. The thing that you can potentially give them a real chance is an education, and ultimately a holistic, comprehensive education, which is what I'm going to talk about in terms of our programs. So Crystal House started off actually not as a school, but as an after-school enrichment program, and it became pretty clear that to really make a difference in these kids' lives, they had to be there all day long. This had to be their school. Not a boarding school. The kids have all Crystal House, the kids always go home at the end of the school day. It's very important that it's not a boarding school, so that the children can continue to keep their connections to their families and have that mutual support. So that's how Crystal House started, 1998 in Mexico City. So we now have 9 schools around the world. The original one in Mexico City, you can see. The next was in Bangalore, India, a very large city in southern India, followed pretty quickly by Cape Town, South Africa. And then the first of 4 Indianapolis schools, which is called Crystal House Academy. And it's actually a charter school. It's a public school, a public charter school. And it's subsidized significantly in addition to the government money that pays for all of the teachers, the basic education program. It's also subsidized by Crystal House International as well. And since then, we've added a second school in India. Our newest school in Jamaica just opened up last fall. And in Indianapolis, we now have that original Crystal House school, the K through 8 Crystal House Academy South. On that same campus, we also have Crystal House Watanabe High School. We have a West Side K through 8 school out West Washington and Tibbs, and on the old Central State property. And then we have 3 campuses of a school called Crystal House Doors. Doors stands for Dropout Recovery School, which is sort of a term of art for adult high school. So these are folks who didn't graduate with their cohort from high school, but want to get a high school degree, not a GED, but a full-blown high school degree. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Crystal House Doors in a minute. So these are where our schools are today. So people often ask me, why these countries? You know, they're kind of all over the place. Why these countries? Well, Christel did business when she owned RCI. She did business in all of these countries. And the resorts that she supported through RCI, you know, were very nice places. People with money were able to buy them. But often they were right next door to the most grinding poverty in these countries. And she saw that, and unlike many people, she had her eyes open when she saw this. And it touched her, and she determined that she wanted to go back to the places that had supported her business and where she had made her money, and focus on a different part of the population, those who are at the low end, really the bottom of the economic ladder. So I'll give you a few statistics on the countries that we work in. In India, 53% of the children are malnourished. Jamaica is one of the poorest countries. We think of Jamaica as a place with great resorts and vibrant culture. The second poorest country in the group. Only 39% of children complete the 12th grade in Mexico. Cape Town is maybe the most beautiful city on earth, if any of you have ever seen it. But it's also one of the most violent cities, and our children are beset by gang violence in the neighborhoods. And right here in our hometown and home state, economic mobility is kind of shockingly limited. So if you come from the lower quintile of the economic ladder, you're in that bottom 20% of earners, only 6.9% ever make it up to the top quintile. So economic mobility in the United States, as I think we all know, has really declined over the last few decades. And this is an indication of how challenged it is if you grow up in that bottom quintile to make significant progress up the economic ladder. So what do we do? Schools. Crystal, everybody knows that Crystal House is house schools are schools first and foremost, and we have a rigorous K through 12 program. I'm going to tell you about this now young woman here. This is a picture we've used for many years because it's a good picture. It's a true picture of our Bangalore school. But this young woman is named Jaya Lakshmi, and she just graduated. This is probably, like I said, a couple of years ago. She just graduated and was admitted to arguably, now Don and I were debating Harvard versus most people know that Harvard's still living on its reputation from the past, and Michigan's a better law school. But in the case of India, Jaya Lakshmi's, this has been described to us as sort of the Harvard of India, the school that she was admitted to, one of the top, if not the top, private educational institutions, colleges in the country. Nutrition and healthcare. Christel always believed that you can't learn on an empty stomach, and obviously, among the very poor of these countries, healthcare is an enormous issue. So the children get 2 full meals a day plus a nutritious snack before they leave at the end of the day, and all of their healthcare needs are taken care of. This is a really important point I want to make here about character development. This is one of the 2 most, I think, unique parts of the Crystal House model. And this isn't character like some sort of an ideological position that Christel had. It's not that at all. This is about universal values and respect, independence, integrity. She really believed that you had to couple character education along with a rigorous academic education, because and life skills training as well. Because to break the cycle of poverty, you needed more than just book learning. You need to learn how to live outside of the attitude of poverty. And so character development is a hugely important part of this model. Community outreach. So we're part of the communities. As I said, we're not boarding schools. And we have a very rigorous parent program as well, where parents are very actively involved in schools. And then finally, the other really unique component of Crystal House is the college and careers program. This may be the most unique. We're not aware of anybody in the world that does this at the level we do. We stick with the students for 5 years after they graduate from high school. There are a lot of great schools all over the world, and they shake their students' hands at their graduation and then their diploma, and then their alumni association contacts them after that to ask for donations. And in Crystal House, it's very, very different. We recognize that these kids don't have, 99% of the time, don't have role models in their homes. They don't have parents who ever even came close to graduating from high school, let alone going off to college, let alone putting on a nice suit of clothes. By the way, I dusted off this suit to wear today. Literally, I dusted. These kids, when they go off to work after they graduated from college, which the majority of them do, the majority of them graduate from a 4-year college. Not all of them, and we fully respect both the decisions and the capabilities of our children, and we support them for that 5-year period just as strongly if they choose to go straight into the workforce or into a certificate program or some other kind of vocational training. So we're not a college or die approach. We believe that we want to support that people can be successful pursuing different paths. But the majority of our kids do end up going to and graduating from 4-year universities. So we stick with them. This is about money, yes. It's really more often less about money than it is about relationships. We'll have kids, they'll go off to college here in the United States and they won't like their roommate. And so they call up and say they're going to quit college because they don't like their roommate. And our counselors will say, okay, there are other ways to deal with not liking your roommate than quitting college and ruining your future. Let's get that fit and switch roommates, so things like that. An unexpectedly high-priced book will pay for the book. Whatever it takes to keep these kids in school. And then when they graduate, that first year out, when they go into the workforce, which again, in many cases, they're going to be in a completely foreign environment to help them make that transition. So let me mention a little bit about Manual, then I'm going to wrap up and open it up for questions. So Manual High School, which again, anybody who's been around Indianapolis for any length of time knows, this is one of the big legacy Indianapolis public schools, high schools, Manual High Schools, that sort of the great South Side Indianapolis high school for many years. Well, it fell upon hard times. Very, very poor performing school, and the state took it over in 2012 and gave it to a private operator to run an organization out of Florida called Charter Schools USA. And Charter Schools USA ran it for 8 years. They improved the school. It was not a stellar performer, but they improved the school. But then their time as an operator, a turnaround operator, ended. And under the state law, the plan is for the school to go back to the district where it came from. That's the purpose of takeover schools. They're not supposed to be permanent. They're supposed to be fixed and then returned to the district. Well, everybody knew that if this school was returned to IPS, especially IPS knew this, that the state wouldn't turn it back because nobody wanted Manual to be part of IPS anymore, and IPS knew that, and so they believed that if they got somebody else to operate the school, then the state would permit the school to be returned, which is exactly what happened. They reached out to us. We agreed to operate Manual High School. It's being phased out. So we operated it last year for sophomores, juniors, and seniors. They did not take in a freshman class. Next year, it will just be juniors and seniors, this coming year, just juniors and seniors. The year after that, just seniors. And then the old Manual High School will be gone. The Christel House will have moved all of its operations over to the Manual High School building, which was our incentive to do this. So we get this building now on a longer term contract. We're in the midst of, I'll jump ahead and show you the pictures here. Because I want to give you a sense of what this is like. So this is what Manual High School looks like. This was built for a little over 2,300 students. And it's got great bones. This building was built, Manual's been around a long time, but this building was built in the 50s. And, you know, it looks like a 1950s school building, but it's in really good shape otherwise. And right now, this coming year, there will be, of the Manual High School students, there will be 250 left. We had a little over 400 when we ran the school this past year, just in those two grades. So we are refurbishing, not you know, putting a huge amount of cosmetic money, it's not zero, in fact, cosmetic money, but setting it up so that we can have all these different schools in the same building. The remaining students at Manual, Christel House High School students, and our high school is getting bigger. We're taking more students from the south side as well as students from our west side K-8 school for the first time. We're moving our K-8 Southside Academy in here. We're moving our doors, our Christel House, our adult high school over, and for the first time, we'll be able to add daytime students. So we are bringing over, and this will grow over the next few years as well, a little bit more. We're bringing over 1,136 students. That move is starting at the end of this month, and it's very, very exciting. So those are all the different schools that I mentioned to you, in addition to the existing Manual High School. By the way, the IHSAA just gave us approval to combine the sports teams. So the Manual, so our kids will get to play football for the first time. The Manual High School football team will continue. It'll be supplemented by Christel House students. So we're very excited about that. Basketball, all the sports, volleyball. So I'm going to come back to Manual because I'm talking about how we can expand our doors programs. We never had enough room to do daytime students on the south side. We do daytime students west side and at Ivy Tech campus, Ivy Tech's campus. But this gives us a chance to have daytime students on the south side. Doors is an amazing program. My first year at Christel House, we had a 64-year-old graduate from Christel House Doors. She wanted to be an example for her grandchildren of the value of education. We have had a lot of people who came back. Now, if you didn't graduate with your high school cohort, something went wrong, right? So in every single person's life was a door student, something went wrong. Might have been substance abuse, it might have been school just didn't work for them, might have been a girl that got pregnant and dropped out. There are all kinds of reasons why people don't graduate on time. But there's a story there in every case. So it's a very different kind of school, right? Everybody, it's a second chance for everybody. Everybody is trying to rebuild their lives in some just, you know, fell behind and didn't catch up, and they finish off and they move on. But the amazing thing about Doors is the number of people who come back just to get that high school degree, maybe because it's a requirement of their employer, or maybe because they're unemployed and they know they're not realistically going to be able to get a job if they don't have a high school degree. But whatever reason, they come back. They had some problem in their past that they're working to overcome, and they find out that for the first time they actually like school. And the number who end up going on to additional school afterwards is kind of amazing. By no means all of them, not even probably a majority, but a very healthy number end up deciding to go on to, in many cases, no, I shouldn't say maybe, not a majority, I don't know. That's a number I don't know. But a very healthy number end up going on to a four-year university. We've had people graduate from IU and Purdue who graduated from Doors after being out of school for 4 or 5 years. IUPUI here, or Ivy Tech, or a certificate program. They continue their education in some way, and they find that they like school. For the first time, school clicked for them. because they got a different kind of attention. And they were at a different stage in their life. And maybe the problem that caused them to drop out in the first place. But for some reason or another, they didn't necessarily think they were going to continue school. They just wanted to check that box. And now they are continuing school. So a lot of amazing success stories. And I'll just finish up here. So Manual, because it's such a huge building, we also have room to do other things. And we wanted to make it a community serving campus for the south side of Indianapolis. So we have for our door students, we've developed a drop-in daycare. So they can, as you might imagine, it's a lot of times people can't come back to school even if they want to, because they have childcare issues, they can't afford to pay somebody. It's for a couple hours at a time. With the drop-in daycare, they don't have to pay, they don't have to have any kind of commitment to bring the kids every day. It's whenever they're there, they can drop the kids off. We're also going to have a full-time early childhood learning center there. We're partnering with Early Learning Indiana, the premier child care and early learning provider in central Indiana, is going to be our partner on that. So that'll be a very major investment. The CEAS Institute at Indy, which provides certificate programs in all kinds of vocational pursuits, is going to not only be available for our students, our door students, and some of our regular K through 12 graduates, but also to the community. So others will be able to come in and get certificate programs, get certificates through the various programs of the CEAS Institute. And these are just some of the Simon Foundation and the Glick Foundation you would certainly recognize, but also the Rowley Family Foundation is an organization that is run by one of our former board members that Don knows well, who contributed to the drop-in daycare center. So Manual is going to be a community asset. We've got a huge auditorium there. We're not going to use that every day. We want to get performing arts programs that are community-based working out there. It's going to be the revitalization of a kind of a classic old building in a very iconic location that's going to have new life as a result of this partnership that we have with IBS. So our graduates, this is just one example, an audit senior at KPMG in Bangalore. Sindhu grew up in a home, she's like just about every other child that we serve in Bangalore, probably about a 100 square foot home, one room, 5 people typically. These are the circumstances our children grow up in. She is a very successful employee and will not surprise me at all to hear about her becoming a KPMG partner at some point in her future. But a lot of extraordinary success stories about employment in big household name companies in India, the United States, and elsewhere with our graduates. Again, I don't want to I leave you with the impression every single one of them is successful. Every single one of them has their life turned around. But I got to tell you, I read and knew a lot about Christel before I joined. It actually looks better when you're on the inside than it does when you're looking at it from the outside. So you read our marketing materials and you say, oh, that sounds really nice, and you're probably puffing things a little bit like everybody does. You get into it's actually better than that. It's better than we say it is, which is kind of remarkable. So we wanted, I just show you this to give you a little bit of a sense of our size. We have a $35 million budget right now, but it's been growing pretty significantly as we added schools and added students. But the key word here is transparency. We really are an open book organization. We'd love people to copy our methods. We'd love people to look at our books. We invite everybody to look at everything we have. There are no secrets with this one.
That's a global budget.
Yeah, that's a global budget. And then a really key point, which is something we're going to say to all of our donors, which is because of Christel's incredible generosity and leaving the bulk of her estate to Christel House, We cover all of the administrative costs of the organization with her funding. My salary, Bobby's salary, everybody else's, cost of keeping the lights on. We have nice offices in Christel design. We're probably going to move into more modest accommodations soon, but all that, no donor dollars go to any of that. All of our donor dollars go directly to the education, character, nutrition, college and careers programs that make up the Christel House model. And that's what Christel's generosity has allowed us to do. That's it. I'm
Every right on time.
I'm happy to open it up for,
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes for questions, so please fire away, Rob.
Yeah, Bart, what is, this is just basic, maybe it's my own information, but what difference does it make to a kid whether he or she has a GED or a full diploma?
well, that's a good question. A GED obviously can give you certain things, but in many cases, secondary school or post-secondary schools want more than that and demand more than that. It just opens up a lot more doors if you have a full high school education rather than just a GED. A GED may tick a box, which will allow you to kind of keep a job or get a certain job. But in terms of really advancing your educational career, having a regular diploma is a big difference maker.
How many students are worldwide?
We've got about 6,000 right now. Of those, about 5,000 are K through 12 students, and then 1,000 are still in our college and careers program, that 5-year post-graduation program.
A program that Kiwanis has is called the Aviation Scholarship Program.
Yes, I know it well.
And one of the things that I would like to see is that since that is available for any student at any high school in Marion County.
We just adjusted the bylaws, Nancy. No, I'm just kidding, go ahead.
As your husband, be careful, you're taking on another project. I just live with the bylaws. Thank you for approving that. Thank God.
But we send out packets to whomever the school tells us to send it to, so that a student can be nominated and hopefully selected as one of the scholarship winners. And the whole point is that these are students who have overcome great challenges. It could be physical, socioeconomic, psychological. And I think your students are perfect for it. And depending on how many schools you have in Marion County, you can have more than one nominee. But we need to know who to send it to.
Great.
I will take care of that.
You will know by the end of this meeting. Thank you. That's it. Can I also just say that 38 years ago, I started working as a corporate lawyer at Ice Miller, and I love Nancy's presentation about bylaws. I wish it could have gone on for a little longer. I'm a bylaws fan. All right. That's it.
Could you talk a little bit about how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected just the educational process in schools? Because it sounds like the hands-on learning, one-to-one type of education.
Well, if you walked into a Christel School, you'd see a number of things. One is you'd see very well-behaved kids and kids who don't look like they, are coming from very, very, very modest circumstances. But you would also see what looked like fairly traditional educational, see classrooms with teachers in front. And so it's not that the educational program is that different. Now the DOORS program that's much more hands-on, because much more customized, because everybody's circumstances are very different. So if you miss a month of school, that's not abnormal. So figure out a way to make that up. But our traditional K through 12 schools are pretty, you'd recognize them as normal schools. So we had the same problems as everybody else did with COVID, except we also discovered some shocking things, and I'm sure many of you have heard about this. How low the percentage of people with connectivity Wi-Fi connectivity in Indianapolis was. So well, we weren't the only ones that found this out, but surprisingly low percentage of people have Wi-Fi in their homes. So doing remote education through devices was, we had to figure out the connectivity issue. And obviously, we needed more devices because in many cases the kids weren't taking devices home. All of our kids across the world, have they're working on computers in their schools, but most of them weren't taking those devices home with them. So across the entire, let's leave Indianapolis now and talk about the whole world. We had to get devices in their hands. So in most cases, are Chromebooks, which more simplified laptops, or tablets. And Bobby led an effort that in just a couple of months we raised efforts.
400,000.
Yeah, and close to $500,000 to buy devices for our kids across the world. And got that money and got the devices bought in just a few months. So we were, if you go to Carmel High School, not to pick on them, but it's a higher income school, obviously. Pretty much everybody's going to have Wi-Fi connectivity. They're going to have laptops. They're going to have those things. And it was really hard for them. Well, we had to get the devices and the connectivity in place and then learn the remote teaching as well. So probably everything you've heard about the difficulty of it, we had those same problems. And then on top of it, this big gap, this big digital divide. Started using a pretty big digital divide and bridge. But we were able to do that really quickly. So it's probably the thing I look back at the last 2.5 years that I'm most excited about is how quickly we got devices and connectivity to our kids. But every teacher will tell you it was a grind. And every student will tell you it wasn't much fun. And only in Mexico, of all of our schools, Mexico is still the only one that's not been back in person at all. Prohibited by the government from going back in person. They're just starting to allow some kids back. And we're hopeful by the start of the next school year in Mexico in August, that our kids will be back in school.
Well, last question.
Bart, the story is terrific. I remember you said 96 is when Christel sold the RCI. Soon after she sold it, she spoke to us at Kiwanis.
Oh, is that right?
And she told us exactly how much money she made, which was interesting. And I can remember. But she was also talking about some of the ideas that she had. So, yeah, and this fits right in with what she was talking about.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Yeah, she always tried to kind of, after that, I think she learned her lesson because she always tried to downplay how much money she made. But anyway, she was remarkable, and her generosity is sort of beyond comprehension.
Roger, you got a question? Is real quick. Are the students required to pay any tuition?
No, they're not. What you find in a lot of our the countries where we work in, there's a whole field of education called low-fee private schools. And low-fee private schools are often targeting lower-income kids. And not necessarily, we target really not the lowest of low income, the lowest income kids in India or Mexico. They'll be, homeless children living on the streets. That's really the true bottom of the economic ladder. Our kids are one step up from that. They have families typically, even if they're single family led, and a place to live. And we want that because we want them to stay with us. They don't have a home. It's kind of hard to keep them for 12 years or 13 years. But I'm sorry, now I lost my train of thought. Where did we start here? Tuition, yeah. So there are a lot of schools that target lower income kids, and they charge relatively modest fees. But Christel made the decision not to charge any fees. So we say we are a no fee private school. All of 100% of the costs are paid for by Christel.
Do you turn down applicants?
We turned down a lot of applicants. Typically, it's because they don't fall within our poverty criteria. In other words, they are too well off. And believe me, that's not very well off. Not too well off, but yeah, we're very rigorous about that because it's our number one criterion. That was Christel House's number one point. She did not want to invest in kids who might have a chance otherwise. The sort of way she looked at it.
Well, we decided to extend it for another hour, Bart.
Talk about bylaws.
One. So speaking with some of our Kiwanis International peers over the last year in particular, there are a lot of overlaps with your cause and ours, never underestimating how basic the need can be for sanitation and pencils in India. So Mexico City, Jamaica, South Africa, that's just fantastic. So we will make a small donation in your name to the Trinity Haven, provides long-term housing to LGBTQ youth who would otherwise encounter homelessness. Thanks to Don Gable for your time. Again, beyond words, great to see a full room today. And please join us